Just like yesterday, it has a bit of everything and it keeps coming at you. So we kickstart, as Josh said there, with Monochrome GT4 Australia. They've arrived here for their first round of the championship, Chris, with a great field. Trico Trans Am, race 2 of the weekend. Bit of concern around tyre life and how the teams and drivers will manage that. That'll be a story. First Focus Radical Cup Australia. Nice yarn out of that. A young man stepping up to Fanatec GT World Challenge Australia with a huge opportunity at Ferrari.
Absolutely, and we've got 2 races in Super Cheap Auto TCR Australia. The Trico Trans Am wrapping up their weekend as well. That's all to come. GT4 is kicking us off this morning. Monochrome, they've been awesome so far. To start their season, they did it in style, but it was about the history, wasn't it? It was quite a moment yesterday for the record books because this is the Ford Mustang 60 years race, Phillip Island, and what a way, a debut for that GT4 Mustang, and they saluted with the win.
We've got a little bit of vision to show you. Yesterday, Ryland Gray, George Miedeke, this brand new car, the first of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere, only one in Australia, only arrived in the past week or so, and it wins the first race of the weekend of Monochrome GT4. We have got all sorts of really cool cars here on display along the edge of the main straight, the Gardner Straight here at Phillip Island, celebrating, as Chris said, 60 years of Mustang. Thanks to Ford Australia for that. They've got iterations from as far back as the 60s when it first was shown to audiences around the world in 1964. We're about to go racing. We hope you enjoy it. Let's take you to commentary and say good morning to Cameron Van den Duggan.
Good morning, boys. And to add to that, Richard Craill joining me briefly in the box this morning as well, as we see the Mustang roll up onto grid position number 1. Jim Farley, Global CEO, called Andrew Miedeke last night to congratulate him. He's over at Goodwood at the moment. And I believe he's driving with a former teammate of Andrew Miedeke's as well at Goodwood this weekend. So Jim Farley, very happy, a Ford boss.
Morning, Cameron. Nice to be here. Who's the former teammate?
A Sopper is his surname. Okay. Steve Sopper.
Right. Steve Sopper, he's a gun. Yeah, what a story it is, and Ford's involvement has been unbelievable in our sport, of course, in Australia for so long, but continues to be so as we have a look at this amazing circuit on the racetalk.com drone cam that's been providing us with amazing pictures all weekend long. This is such a special racetrack to come and visit. And what a great thing it is, Cam, to see the debut of this category stand alone as part of this current growth of GT racing in Australia. I got stitched up by our mate Josh Buchan there, who's irritatingly good at television for wearing my Porsche jacket. We've just had Michelin Sprint Challenge finish their Enduro Cup race. You'll see highlights of that on the socials a little bit later on today. It was won by Hamish Fitzsimmons. 26 Porsches, 18 GT4 cars, 18 GT3 cars. Those grids are only going to get bigger. GT racing in this part of the world, anchored off the back of the Bathurst. 12-hour state-level racing as well is unbelievably strong. Great to see GT4 kicking off and the variety of cars in this field. And great to see Shane Smollen on the front row too, after quite a big impact coming into pit lane yesterday. Unfortunately, young Astudi got him as they got to the 40k an hour line. They've patched the Cayman GT4 up, and Shane, who is the defending GT4 champion, will be able to start this race from the outside of the front row. So
good opportunity to give you a bit of an idea of what happened yesterday. You alluded to the incident with Antonio Astudi, which was on the entry to pit lane. Well, they've withdrawn from this weekend in the 27, he and Rob Love, but he will carry a 5 grid place penalty to the next race for GT4, the next race that car competes in. A couple of other penalties to tell you about as we wait to get this rolling start underway. Ryder Quinn and Steve Jakic, they were disqualified yesterday as a result of a Parc Ferme infringement. And then there were 3 40-second penalties applied due to understopping. There's a 120-second required pit stop for each of the cars, and then I'll talk to you about some adjustments they've made as a result of yesterday's race. But Josh Buchan and Jason Yu, they received a 40-second penalty after that race. Jamie Augustine and Peter Lawrence received a 40-second penalty, and Tony Quinn also received a 40-second penalty for understopping during yesterday's race.
Well, just a slight delay in the start of this race following a little clean-up. Now, I'm going to leave you with some capable assistance.
Move off 80 kph, please. Move off safety car.
That's the voice of James Taylor, who is the race director for Fanatec GT World Challenge, both GT3 and GT4. And how's this for a segue, Cameron? I'm quite proud of this. He's also the race director for the Supercars Championship, and we've just dragged in a little bit of a superstar who's doing double duties for both supercars and in GT World Challenge this year, driving alongside Brad Schumacher in that awesome Audi R8. Had a podium finish yesterday. Will Brown's with us. Good morning, mates.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm out of breath from running over here.
A lot of stairs. A lot of stairs. I'll leave you two boys at this.
Thank you very much, Kralsey. Swill, good to have you up in commentary, mate. This category GT4, we've just been talking about how it is really taken to Phillip Island, which is a GT track, let's be totally honest. But what a great category it's proving to be, and it's only one race into its history.
Yeah, I'm amazed this weekend, to be honest, and even the start of this year to see how much GT4 has grown, but also GT3 with it this year, with SRO taking over. It's been awesome, but I'm loving being a part of the GT3 this weekend and also watching the GT4s.
Fantastic. Let's look at the grid as they'll start race number 2. The Mediki Motor Group will start on pole position. Lockie Manif, we mentioned before, Shane Smollen also at the wheel of that car will start on the front row. Marcus Flack and Tim Leahy second row. Nathan Morecambe and Jake Camilleri a bit further back. And as we look to the back of the grid, you'll notice a few of the drivers I mentioned with regard to that 40-second penalty from yesterday. They will be coming off the back of this grid. It'll be a rolling start as well. Safety car takes them around the circuit. And it was first blood to the Ford Mustang yesterday. George Mediki told me that he thought he was on for it because Ryland Gray, who's at the wheel at the moment, I believe, he was incredibly quick. In fact, George said to me this morning, I'm learning a fair bit from Ryland, looking at his data, which is great to see.
Yeah, he's done a mega job, that's for sure. I don't know a whole lot about Ryland, to be honest, but to see what he did yesterday was really impressive. And
I should also add, Will, just before we get this one underway, they actually had to do a clutch change in that Ford Mustang overnight. During the race, I started to comment about the McLaren coming back right at the end of the race. Well, the clutch wasn't disengaging, and every time they were changing gear, what they actually were having was some locking of the rear as well. So they've made a clutch change overnight on the Ford Mustang. That car should be good to run for this weekend. But Ryland Gray, this is a young driver who's building his reputation in the sport, much like you did, mate, with all the different categories you raced. Good to see a young guy trying a different category, very much like you did.
Yeah, definitely, and it's great to see the Medikis giving a young guy a go. You know, this is what it's all about when there's two drivers. If you can get George and a young, fast guy to prove himself and get a little bit more experience is what this category is all about. So, yeah, it's been great to watch, but they've had a big effort this week, haven't they? Getting the car so late, I can't believe it. So, hopefully they can get another win, but it's cool to see so many cars on the field.
All right, we get set for a race start now. Look, Mustang off pole. They'll have the inside run down into turn 1 and should have the advantage with the legs on that V8 alongside the little Porsche of Shane Smollen. Behind them, the McLaren of Tom Heyman. And watch out for Tim Leahy. Finished up on the podium yesterday. Cars side by side as we come down the main straight today for the Monochrome GT4 Australia Series race number 2. We're in the starters' hands now, watching for the red lights to go out. And the first race of Sunday is away with the Mustang racing down to turn 1. Shane Smollen tries to hang to the outside of the young Ryder Quinn. And the horsepower of the V8 gives all the confidence in the world to move across and open up turn 1. So Ryder Gray leads for Shane Smollen. Tom Heyman, he's there in the McLaren. And watch for Tim Leahy. He's attacking the back of the McLaren as well. Further back down the order, we'll see a couple of hard charges. So to make their way back up after some penalties yesterday, all clean through Southern Loop, head down to turn number 3. And the Mustang has just raced away in the lead. And Smollen's now dropped back to 4th as a result of just being a bit slower through turn 2. And the McLaren now of Tom Heyman up into 2nd.
Is Tom Heyman, is that with Method Race? Is that, yep, okay, Chaz Mostert.
So Tom Heyman, Marcus Flack, they're in the Method Motorsport McLaren GT4.
It's cool to see Chaz come into the category and, you know, support it and get a couple of cars, so that's been interesting. I've been watching that fairly closely. I
did have a chat to him yesterday. He says he's a very busy man now, changing focus on driving different cars as we see the Mustang just heavy under brakes down into turn 10. Also known as MG Corner. The challenge here, particularly for the bigger cars, is to get across and open up turn 11. You're fighting that car all the way through here and you need the run. Will Brown, you know better than anyone.
Yeah, I think the first couple of laps, to be honest, is building those tyres up to pressure. When they're cold, coming around this last corner, I'm not sure in these, but it's nearly flat, but it's not quite flat. So you're making sure you don't lose the rear, don't make a mistake. keep that lead. So Ryder Gray's doing an awesome job just to be the pioneer out there. You're not sure what to expect. I know it's dry, but still you've got cold tyres. So doing a fantastic job sort of gapping them a little bit, I would say, and building a lead.
Well, he's going to need to. They've got an extra 5 seconds on anyone else at the pit stop. So 15 seconds has been added to their 120-second minimum. So they've got a 135-second compulsory stop when they hand over between Ryland Gray and George Miedeke a little later on. And that's part of this racing format. What we see in GT racing is a little bit of, I guess you'd say, nobbling of the fast cars, and you can do that through some adjustments on pit stop times. But this is an hour-long race, 52 minutes remaining plus 1 lap for these cars, and they do have a stop. And it was great to see. We put it up on social media overnight as well if anyone wants to go back. There's watching on 7 Plus at the moment. You can hear Chris Stubbs taking you through the stop for the single car. The single driver entries, they have to get out, stand next to the car and then get back in. We were talking about how much of an advantage it can be to stay comfortable in the car and just make sure your belts are tight. Will, you've jumped in and out of many cars over the journey. It gets the heart rate up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. It's probably the most nerve-wracking time of the race is getting ready to jump in the car and not make a mistake putting all your seatbelts on, because one small fumble and you can end up going over that pit stop time. But yeah, it's interesting. Like you say, I haven't done heaps of endurance racing, so that 15 seconds added to the leader, you've got to do a good job. But I love when you're second, you think, oh yeah, that guy's got 15 seconds, but when you're first, you never want it, that's for sure.
Well,
But,
the easiest pass you can ever do in motorsport's the one in pit lane, isn't it? We see it in Formula One, down through supercars, everywhere else. As we continue to set our sights on the race leader and the gap between them, which is Ryland Gray and Tom Heyman. Heyman just wants to keep him within 5 seconds because that will be the advantage in the pit stop. In the meantime, let's check in with Sarah Burton.
Ryder Quinn, you weren't actually supposed to be here today, but you're about to get in the car. How excited are you?
Pretty excited. I mean, I didn't know I was driving till Friday, so it's obviously super cool, especially after the crash at Bathurst a few weeks ago. I got Taupo in the Cup car next week, and it's good to sort of reset, gain some confidence back, and yeah, hopefully roll on to Taupo next week with some confidence.
Yeah, so talk to us about that crash at the Bathurst 6 hour. Has it rocked your confidence at all? Are you feeling like you've bounced back?
Look, I mean, you always want to be as confident as you can, so you can maximise everything. Going into it, I mean, I got in the car Friday and I was like, oh, I'll be fine. But I think a film did quickly go through my mental. So, I mean, look, it's all back now and we can push on.
Yesterday, a bit of a rough day. You did get disqualified. We do have to talk about it, I'm sorry. Do you feel like it's fair? Are you ready to just get back out there and get on with it?
Oh, look, I mean, rules are rules, right? So we actually got 2 penalties. One for a pit lane infringement, which was my fault. And then the other one was for a bit of a ride height issue. Not sure how that came about, but you know, we tuned it up and the car's fully legal now, so we can push on.
The last time you were here was a couple of years ago. You were in a Formula 4, but now you're in GT. Are you excited to give it a whirl in a different car?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, coming back here, I forgot where the track went. I mean, it's such a cool track, such a cool car, such a cool category, the GT4 category. It's super awesome to be driving in it, and yeah, super lucky.
Thank you very much.
Awesome, thanks guys.
Well done, Birdie Beetle down there in pit lane. That's her nickname. Well, you love a good nickname, don't you? Does a great job. Good to hear from Ryan Quinn. That car is down in 13th at the moment as a result of the disqualification yesterday. So Steve Jakic working his way up through the field, up 3 positions at the moment. And so we'll see that car move up through the order. But yeah, jumping into the car as of Friday, a few last-minute deals have been done in your career as well, haven't they, Will?
always.
So we look at the leaders now, and the Ford Mustang still leading. Tom Heyman sticking with him inside a second. The McLaren looking very strong early.
I just saw that actually when they were talking with Ryder there. Tom Heyman's just gone and set the fastest lap of the race and closed in about 3/10 on that lap. So it's going to be interesting. He's definitely holding within that 5 seconds. So George Miedike's going to have some work to do, I think, when he hands over the car.
Yeah, it's a new race lap record too, that 1:34.4. First time we've seen GT4s as a category in Australia, so they're going to be setting some new lap records. But yesterday the fastest time was a 35.0. We're 0.6 faster than that right now. Track's looking quick.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think yesterday they raced in the afternoon, which there might have been a bit more heat around and that sort of stuff. So maybe with the temperatures this morning, it's just allowing them to pick up that pace a little bit, have a bit more grip. As we know in motorsport, the cooler conditions, generally the better, the faster the cars go. So, yeah, it's interesting to see him go so much quicker today. But I think Tom Heyman might be able to put a bit of pressure on soon, and we'll see if there's a bit of a race for the lead.
Well, this is getting very interesting as we see the Mustang just levelling out in performance and the McLaren getting much faster. So both of these drivers into the 34s, the pressure on early. Just received a message from race control as well. We're having a slight adjustment to the time finish of this one. So the new race is 11:16 plus 1 lap. So there's a slight adjustment, time certain, 11:16 plus 1 lap. So we continue to watch this battle. Ford Mustang GT4 versus McLaren GT4. And Richie Crail was talking off the top of our coverage here about the rise of GT racing. I'm really enjoying the fact that GT4 is here. There's about 10 seconds a lap difference between the GT4 and the GT3. But finally, we're seeing a proper pathway for development within the GT world in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great for young guys coming through. The GT3 cars are a fast car. There's no doubt about it. Even for me, jumping in the GT3 car, I find it fast. So, you know, I think it's a great learning place for the young guys. But I also think for, you know, some of the gentleman drivers, I'm not sure if they like being called that, but, you know, for them coming through, a GT4, I think, is great. You know, a lot of them don't want to be going around here trying to do a 1:24 faster than a supercar. So it's,
let's be honest, a 1:34 is still a very quick lap time at Phillip Island.
It is, definitely, that's for sure. So they're still fast cars, but yeah, it's proven to be a great category for that.
This is the battle of Shane Smolin and Brian. That's Jesse Bryan at the wheel of the 24. The battle raging down through turn 3, heading down to Honda corner, also known as Jack Miller corner.
He's got it done there.
Yeah, damage to the rear. And that, we saw the contact yesterday. That's on the Shane Smolin car, isn't it?
It doesn't look like there's any damage on the front of the McLaren there, so it'll be interesting to see where that damage has come from.
Well, yesterday you wouldn't have seen it, Will Brown, but Antonio Astudi ran right into the back of that car as they came into pit lane, which put the Astudi car out for the weekend, and they had to do a repair job on the rear of the Porsche. So maybe something's just come loose. And that's released now Jesse Bryan, who's through. And he sets sights up the road, and it looks like now Camilleri about to put a move on Shane Smolin as well. And that's for 5th place out on track. But Mercedes v Porsche. Out the front, it's Ford versus McLaren. Such a wide variety of cars.
Funny this category, isn't it, to see a Ford beating McLaren? You wouldn't expect it, but it's great to have so many manufacturers in this category. People buying different cars. There's not just everyone buying a Mercedes or a McLaren. There's so many different manufacturers, which I think makes it exciting. And being a BOP category, it really changes up the racing each round and makes it interesting. Different tracks will play to different strengths of each of the different cars. And it's interesting, I was looking at the socials comments last night, a lot of love for GT4. And there's a place for a lot of Ford fans that were jumping on there. They were quite happy to see the win. And I think it's quite fitting here at the Shannon Speed Series. Ford Mustang 60 years race Phillip Island. And so many Mustangs down here on the main straight as well. We've got quite a few Ford fans. It's because it's the only win they're going to have this year. Poor buggers. I was waiting for you, Will. I was waiting for you to do that. You're going to light up our socials, mate. All the Ford fans are going to be roasting me. Well, someone who's known for a different manufacturer that's not part of this race is Molly Taylor, and she's down with Greg Rust.
Not with Greg Rust, I'm Chris Stubbs, but thank you, Cam. I am with Molly Taylor, and Molly, a great friend of Shannon Speed. So it's so good to see you back here in the lane. Tell us, why are you here at Phillip Island?
Yeah, it's nice to be here just as a spectator with no job to do. So we're here enjoying the action and the great coverage you guys are doing on 7 Plus. Yeah, we're here with the Buckby Motors crew in the GT4. Ben Newman's out in the car now. Eddie Maguire's about to jump in. We rally together in ARC. So yeah, we've got a little bit of a rally world coming into circuit, so just here to see how it's going. I got to have a few laps in the AMG a couple of weeks ago, so very keen to just watch how it all progresses.
ARC, of course, available for you on 7 Plus. Molly, one of the stars of the series there, that had their first round at Canberra. Molly, you said that you've been in the car and some birds, people have eyes. We know people in this industry. There are suggestions that you are going to be joining the team and having a drive this year. Can you confirm or deny?
I mean, I think it's a great idea. So let's keep talking like that's happening. Look, nothing confirmed, but would be great to jump in potentially opportunity at the Enduros later this year to jump in with Ben and Eddie. So yeah, I really hope that happens. We're working on that plan. So would love to have a go. They look like, well, I mean, from the little bit that I have done in the car, it's awesome to drive. But yeah, it looks like an awesome category. Great field as well. So yeah, always keen to try something different.
Molly, you're a star here, you're a star overseas, of course, Extreme E champion. Talk to us about your calendar, the year ahead, what's happening?
Yeah, busy year. So we've got Extreme E, we've already done the first round in Saudi Arabia. We've got the next one coming up middle of the year back in Europe. So busy with that, some more travel overseas, and then with the Australian Rally Championship as well, doing the Production Cup with Subaru. So we've just had the first round last weekend, actually, and then busy getting ready in a couple of weeks. We head to Perth. So two very different from turning up with my helmet internationally and driving and feeling like a superstar, which is great, to then coming back here and trying to run the whole rally program. Yeah, it's a big job. Got some great help at the Mad Garage getting that underway, so had to give a plug there. So yeah, it's kind of the two extremes. We're getting all the sides of motorsport, but just loving being busy driving. That's what we're all about.
I was going to mention Mad Garage, but you got there before. Your partner Dan is alongside me, but didn't get a plug. We weren't allowed to do the interview. Molly, great to see you. We'll catch up.
Buy these caps if you want to look this stylish.
There you go. We'll catch up with you again throughout the year. Great to see you.
Thanks, Stubbsy.
Well done, Stubbsy. Thank you for jumping in with Molly Taylor. 41 minutes, 1 lap remaining in this race. As we see,
I guess for people tuning in today and myself, when does the pit lane open for driver changes? So
well, it's a good point, because I was about to start to give you those the various things to watch out for, particularly where our drivers are. So the number one with the bodywork starting to fall right off for Shane Smollen. That car, unfortunately for him, or fortunately, depending on which way you want to look at it, because of the result yesterday, will have an extended pit stop. So he gets an extra 5 seconds.
Right.
2 minutes and 5 seconds, so 125 seconds for that car. They might use that entire time repairing the bumper for Shane Smollen before he hands over. So the pit lane window will open shortly, but what we've got is the 35 that currently sits in the lead, Ryland Gray. I've mentioned before, he's got a 1:35-second stop. The 25, Tom Heyman, 5 seconds shorter stop, and the gap between them less than a second. So we should see a change for the lead in the pit stop when that happens. Race control will be right onto this. I'm actually having a look to see out the window whether or not they're going to give a mechanical black flag.
I think no doubt he's going to get it unless it falls off. You know, if you're in the car behind him, you'd be staying to the left a little bit, I think, down the straight, or watching out.
So we're going to look, see how this actually occurred. So the replay here, just down the main straight, air's got underneath it, and there it goes, takes the bodywork off. And so not as a result of any contact at all, but that was how the bodywork blew off the back of that car. And as I said before, we'll keep an eye out. I haven't seen a mechanical black flag come out just yet for the Porsche Cayman 718 GT4 of Shane Smollen. Now, the other driver I was going to mention is the 24 of Jesse Bryan. He's got a 125-second stop. So Jesse Bryan sitting back in 4th place, just in front of Shane Smollen at the moment, as we go back to your race leader, Ryland Gray, a young driver who's building his name and career. Now, I want to have a chat with you, Will, about the way that car, the Mustang, starts to bounce around, particularly up over the top of Lukey Heights. We've been hearing from a number of drivers that as a result of the resurfacing, the thought was initially that it was just really grippy and catch release, particularly at turn 2, and also heard through Siberia and up over the top of Lukey Heights. We see it in the body language, so this is probably a softer setup in the Mustang as a result of that bouncing around. Did you notice that yourself?
Yeah, massively. The track surface, I've been here for a while, and especially not on this new track surface. Unfortunately, we didn't get a test day, but the grip is amazing out there. So through turn 2, it does sort of grip up, and then you get a bit of oversteer when it releases and loses grip, and then grips up again. So you sort of get a bit of a hop in the car, and even especially on exit, I could feel my car like getting a bit of a hop, and I think that's what's happening with the Mustang. I think also, you know, I'm not exactly sure, but I'd say the Mustang's got a higher centre of gravity looking at it compared to the McLaren, and also a heavier car. So, yeah, it's definitely going to move around a little bit more in those scenarios.
Shane Smollen into the pit lane. They were just about to show him a mechanical black flag, so they've decided to come in and get their stop done. They'll fix the rear of that car, and we should see a change of driver as well for the number 1, and that will be Lockie Manif that will jump into that car. So Lockie Manif will take over from Shane Smollen. And you wanted to get to the pit lane window. Normally you get a couple of laps. So the mechanical black flag for car number 1. They make the adjustment to that. He has that extended stop. Steve Jakic, he's up to 11th. And while we mention that, we'll see Ryder Quinn jumping into that car once they do their stop.
It's been interesting watching some of the old timers, Tony Quinn and Mark Griffith. I've just been looking out here, and they're into a big battle, and we haven't seen it on footage, but it's cool to see those guys still going around and having fun and enjoying this racing as well. So
Shane Smollen stayed at the wheel. Sorry, I was alluding to the fact that they were going to take their stop. The pit lane window hasn't opened, which is why they were going to potentially continue around. That's really compromised the car bearing the number 1 as he makes his way back out on track. Shane Smollen still at the wheel. He'll have to wait until the pit lane window opens, and then they can do their driver change. Back to the lead of this race, Ryland Gray and Tom Heyman. They will hand over, and it'll be George Miedeke battling Marcus Flack, which will be interesting to watch, because the advantage at the end of the pit stops, if we stay the way we are now, will go the way of Marcus Flack in the McLaren. And then George Miedeke will have to work hard to get himself back to the lead.
That's an interesting one with Shane Smollen. I'd probably been a bit cheeky. I would have held out there, waited for the mechanical flag.
That was
You've got 2
suggesting.
laps to serve it, and then you probably would have made it to the pit window. So they're probably a bit nicer than I am and thought it was a bit dangerous. But yeah, I think if he stuck out there, waited for it, he would have been still in the game, and probably could have served it when they had to do their pit stop and put Ryder in.
That was exactly where I was going, Will.
Yeah.
And I knew that was exactly where your brain would go as well. Because you can game the system, and you should game the system occasionally.
That's right, yeah. Well, what time does the pit lane time open?
Well, we've had to have that happen because you saw George Miedeke, who's standing there ready to jump on board. We also saw Josh Buck, and I think he was checking his Instagram. I'm not sure he was checking the time.
Sounds about right.
There's 100% Josh Buck, and he's going to jump at the wheel. Jason Hughes up 3 spots in 14th. Now, remember, they do have that extended stop for Jason Hughes coming up shortly as well. So here we go. They continue around, starting to catch up on some of the lap traffic. There's a Ginetta just up in front. And look at the horsepower for the V8 of the Ford Mustang down the main straight.
It's going to be interesting through turn 1. I think the Mustang's going to get held up by the Ginetta here, and we'll see if Tom Heyman can close in through here while he's getting held up.
Oh, no.
Definitely, here we go. It's going to be on.
The hard way around the outside, the Ginetta getting monstered. And now he'll block up the run of the McLaren on the exit of 2, and that really compromises him, because the V8 of the Mustang will stretch its legs on the exit of 2 down through 3. There's an opportunity it'll be slightly tight entry to turn 4, which won't help the Mustang. It should give the advantage to the McLaren here. So make their way through turn 4, and then up through, I don't know why it's called turn 5, but there's a slight kink before we get to Siberia.
Yeah, it's interesting. Nobody really won or lost during that little battle with the lap cars. Usually you find someone you can close in or make a move when they hold you up. But, yeah, Tom Heyman closed up a little bit, but, yeah, just couldn't get there. So it's going to be interesting to see if they pit this lap.
So coming up over the top of Lukey Heights now, your race leaders. Got an incident a bit further back down the order. Oh, didn't see him. That was the 101 of Tony Quinn turning in.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure who's in the orange car, sorry, but I think he was a little bit deep in. You could see the tyres in the ABS. He knew he was probably a bit deep in there, right in the ABS, and unfortunately they've made contact. So hopefully there's not too much damage there, but that's what I was talking about before. I think Mark Griffith was in on that race as well, and they were racing hard. You could see it from up here, so cool to watch.
Well, that's the Steve Jakic car that's now come into pit lane as well. I wonder whether there's some steering damage on the front of the car as a result of that contact with Tony Quinn. Tony Quinn just turned in, not expecting to see Steve Jakic up the inside of turn 4. And there it is, just coming through pit lane. And it does look like there's a bit of damage on the front left. In fact, yep, they'll be pulling out of this race. Pulling up. I'm not sure they're going to be able to repair that car.
It's been interesting looking down to see if it's, you know, if it's a flat tyre or if it's worse than that.
But it looked like it was wobbling around.
A bit more sinister, doesn't it?
Yeah. So here's the 24 of Jesse Bryan out on board his McLaren, making his way out on track. There's Shane Smollen still at the wheel of his Porsche. As a result of that mechanical black flag, just put him right back down the order, and the pit window's now open. There you are, we're ready to go. Pit window finally opens. I don't think he would have made it. They made the call to get it done earlier because I was timing it out to see whether he could have done the 2 laps. And it looked like it would have been about 3 laps. So, Will Brown, I know you would have gained it, but I think the team made the right call. They had to get him in and get the penalty served.
I think you just look right down the straight and say, oh, I didn't see that mechanical flag, sorry.
There's been a few drivers that have done that over the journey. And then they've ended up right below us in race control, funnily enough, just having a chat.
Tom Heyman's in the pits, and Ryland Gray hasn't pitted, so we'll see where this comes out.
This is interesting. I was wondering whether they would try and get 1 lap just to give themselves a chance to stay on it whilst Marcus Flack gets himself up to speed. In something like supercars or Formula 1, this would be called an undercut. I'm not sure in GT racing they'll get the same advantage they would, say, in a supercars race or in a Formula 1 event. But this is an interesting split strategy here. They decided to come in. Tom Heyman will hand over to Marcus Flack. So plenty of stops happening right now. Tim Leahy also in.
I think you'll actually find in this scenario it'll be an overcut because Ryland Gray's quite fast. He's the pro driver. I think him doing an extra 1 or 2 laps, if they can fit it in here, he'll actually get ahead by a little bit.
And that is exactly what George Medicki was telling me yesterday and this morning. He feels that Ryland's actually quicker than him in the car, so they'll run him probably right as long as they can in the car to keep the momentum and potentially keep the lead. I'm not sure he's going to be able to hold a 5-second plus gap, which is the advantage that went the way of Marcus Flack and Tom Heyman. But here's the battle out on track and in the pit lane. We've got the 750 of Mark Cotterell also in pit lane. So it's Heyman, Leahy, Jesse Bryan, Zoe Woods back in pit lane, Tony Quinn, Ben Newman, Smollen and Cotterell as well.
It's interesting that Tony doesn't have too much damage to that car because it was a fairly hard hit down at the hairpin there. I thought... oh no, he's, as I say that, he's pulling out of the race.
So Tony Quinn now also out, and that was a result. 2 cars out as a result of what happened at turn 4. Here we go. We're actually making the changeover. So Ryland Gray will come in and hand over to George Medicki. And now we'll see the gap, and you should see Marcus Flack in the lead, barring any dramas that happened in the pit stop, and we didn't see any from our vantage point. So it was going to be a 5-second advantage, and if it stayed true to where it was, it should be about a 4-second lead to Marcus Flack at the end of this pit stop when George Medicki comes back out on track. Half an hour to go, plus 1 lap for GT4 race number 2 for the 2024 Monochrome GT4 Australia Series. This is the changeover. Ryland Quinn gets out. Hopefully we'll get a chat with him a little later on as we see Marcus Flack out on track in his McLaren. So this is the race right now, down through turn number 2. So a long lap to go, but remember, it's 135 seconds as a result of winning the race yesterday for the Ford Mustang. George Medicki, so tall, probably why he's gone the bigger car. We see some more battles raging out on track as well. So we'll start to get an idea of how they'll race to the flag. Camilleri is your leader on track. Lawrence sits alongside him. Jamie Augustine's the other driver within that vehicle. They're yet to stop. Griffith, Gucciardo, Ryland Gray is back in the pit lane at the moment, and their stop is just about completed.
It's going to be interesting looking down pit lane. It looks like George Medicki could be compromised a little bit exiting his pits from the BMW in front. So if he can't get round that, it might not be as tight as it looks up here, but if you can't get round that, it's always difficult and you can lose a little bit of time.
Okay, Marcus Flack now into turn 11. So this is the long run down the straight. They haven't even released yet the Mustang.
I think Marcus Flack's going to have a massive lead here, to be honest. They haven't released and he's coming onto the front straight. So this is going to give George Medicki a lot of work to do to catch up. And
now he's released. Just as the McLaren went past him in that shot. What a great shot. We saw Marcus Flack stream past in the background just as George Medicki was released. And what was, I thought, going to be about a 3-second gap will be much bigger.
This is interesting. I wonder if something went wrong in the pits or how this happened, because, you know, I think this is going to be more like a, you know, it's looking like a 9-second lead or 8-second lead. So it's a lot more than we expected, that's for sure.
So the Heyman stop should have been 130 seconds. And it was 135 for the Medicki Motor Group, with Ryland Gray handing over to George Medicki. So 4 cars yet to stop. Camilleri, Lawrence, Griffith, but Gucciardo pits as I mention it. So he pits it from 4th on track. And in the 12, he'll be handing over, well, he'll be staying, jumping out of the car and then jumping back in because he's one of our solo drivers. And there's your race leader after the pit stops, Marcus Flack, the wheel of his Method Motorsport McLaren.
Yeah, this is it's quite interesting because on our screen it's saying 16.7 seconds after the pit stops, which, you know, I would have thought it might have been 3 or 4, like we were saying. So, not sure if there was a mistake in the pit lane or if we miscalculated, but
no,
yeah.
I actually wondered because we saw a few understop yesterday.
Yep.
So the information for the additional pit stop only came through this morning.
Okay.
So 16 seconds seems to me there may. We'll have a look. We'll get our pit lane team down there just to double check that with both of those teams whether they did their compulsory 1:30 and 1:35 second stops respectively. But 16 seconds is a long time, and there was only 1 second between them, and we didn't see any major dramas out on track as Ryland Gray handed over to George Medicki. There's George Medicki now, the 35.
I'll tell you what, if I'm George Medicki, I'm hoping for a safety car right about now.
Well, you need it, is what he, as we see, exiting turn 2, Marcus Flack now in his McLaren. That's a big gap between those two. So they are effectively your race leaders, 1st and 2nd. When it all shakes out, we've got Camilleri and Lawrence now into the pit lane as well. So Peter Lawrence will be handing over to Jamie Augustine. Jamie Augustine is a technical team member at Motorsport Australia, one of the technical delegates in category. He's been well regarded within state level competition, racing in improved production over the journey. So good to see him out here as part of the GT4 field. He'll be jumping out into the action very shortly.
And it's interesting to see actually Nathan Morecambe's closed right up on George Medicki. I think he's actually within a second. So, you know, the white McLaren there's right on the bumper of the Mustang.
All right, George Medicki getting himself back up to speed. Has raced all sorts of vehicles over the journey as he continues to pass some of the back markers. Let's check in with Chris Stubbs.
Cam, thank you. What a great stint it was from Ryland Gray. Ryland, talk to us about the conditions out there and how you found the car.
Yeah, so I got off to a good start, starting on pole and just sort of maintained the lead there. The car was great and the track was good. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the first stint.
The penalty for yesterday, of course, it hits you in the stop there. George, he's the man that can chase it down and make that difference, can't he? You must have full confidence in what he can do.
Yeah, exactly. Like we had a good win yesterday and just got 5 seconds added to our pit stop. So, yeah, I have full faith in George. He's a great driver. He's been doing an excellent job this weekend. So, yeah, I'll just sit back and watch the rest of the race.
Ryland, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, Cam, while we're here, Ryland's doing a great job, and it's a good time to do a great job because the president and CEO of the Ford Motor Corporation, not only in Australia but also in New Zealand, is Andrew Perkins, and he joins me now. Andrew, this is an enormous weekend for your company, isn't it, as we celebrate 60 years of the Mustang?
Yeah, it's a massive week, and we're really proud of multiple things this weekend. I mean, obviously GT4 launch for us, number 6 chassis. So absolutely thrilled that Mediki's, you know, got the car, and performing so well. So Ryland, awesome session. George is in there now. We're really confident they're going to bring it home. But for us as a brand, this is what we do. You know, this is Ford's DNA. It's all about Ford performance. 60th anniversary. We've got all the Mustangs over there, thanks to the owners. And for us as a brand, this is what we're about. It's about owners. It's about emotional connections, and we're just really proud.
60 years of the Mustang, it's more than a car, isn't it? It's in your blood. I mean, you mentioned the words or the letters DNA, but it sparks a passion, doesn't it?
It is, and we love the emotional connection, and people have got stories. I mean, it can be a getaway. People just want to go for a drive. It's their quiet time. It's their fun time, and it elicits so many different emotions, and that's what we love about it. And we think it is an icon. It's something that people aspire to, enjoy, so it just does so many things for us. And for us as a brand, we've got the new Mustang coming out this year, so it's all coming together, and we're really proud of 60 years.
Andrew, thank you for your support of this weekend and your continued backing of motorsport in Australia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done, Chris Stubbs. And George Medicki's got his work cut out for him. The gap was out to over 18 seconds. He's now worked it back down to 17.9.
it's been quite interesting. Apart from on this lap, I'm not sure if Marcus has been caught in the first sector, but George has been about 0.5 a lap slower, so half a second a lap slower each lap from Marcus Flack. So I'm sure even if the pit stops did work out, Marcus seems to be doing a great job out in front in that McLaren, and seems to be really fast. So it'll be interesting to see if George can work into it and start catching up. But unfortunately, I think that 17 seconds is a long gap unless we get a safety car or something there. I think it's going to be very hard for George Medicki to work his way back up there.
We're chasing why that gap, because by our calculations, it shouldn't have been that big from where they went on track and to when they've come back out. So I think there's a story that might unfold there as we watch Marcus Flack set off down the main straight as well. A couple of things that have happened while we were in the middle of that interview before, which was a great job by Chris Stubbs. We saw that both the Mark Cotterell, Jared Hughes car, the Ginetta G55 GT4, and the Zoe Woods Danny Studdard car, the Porsche Cayman GT4, both got pit lane drive-through penalties as a result of speeding in pit lane. So they've now served those, and they'll be back out on track. But that is why they're much further down the order now, or about to be much further down the order. So just giving you all an insight. Really interesting line that we watch in the Mustang. They go very early on the apex down into turn one. It's a different driving style than we see in many other categories.
Yeah, I think it's probably a heavier car. Get it in as tight as you can over the curb, try get it to hook in there and get it turned. Where the McLaren, you can probably flow a bit more speed around the corner, and it's probably the difference between driving my GT3 Audi R8 here this weekend compared to a supercar. You know, you can really flow it around and sort of miss the apex a little bit in the GT3 and use that aero, but yeah, in a heavier car you have to get right in there on the curb and try and make the corner sort of as short as possible. But yeah, it's interesting to see Nathan Morecambe, who was actually a teammate of mine for a fair few years. He was a teammate of mine for 3 years. You know, also his dad, Barry, has supported me through a lot of years in supercars. So it's great to see Nathan back in a car. I believe he's had a year or so out now, and used to race TCR, which is on these weekends as well. And to see him back in a car and enjoying it, enjoying the racing is awesome to see. So hopefully he can put a bit of pressure here on George Medicki and see if he can catch up to him. But just watching from our commentary box, interesting, I was watching down into, I think it's MG down there after Lukey, and the McLaren closes up so much under brakes. And I think just, you know, probably a lot of car and all that, it can break a bit deeper, but then the Mustang seems to gap it a little bit down the straight.
A couple of other pit lane penalties starting to come in. I'm not sure two of our drivers would like to hear this, the 25 and the 24. So Marcus Flack and Nathan Morecambe have pit lane drive-through penalties. That's what George Medicki was hoping to see.
That's amazing. Well, what's the pit lane time? George Medicki's got a 17-second Marcus Flack has a 17-second lead. It'd be interesting to see what the pit lane loss time is. I reckon he's going to come out about probably 8 to 10 seconds behind, I'm guessing. Well, so it'll be interesting to see if he can catch that time.
Ford fans just jumped to their feet because they're back in the window now. Let's check in quickly down in pit lane with Chris Stubbs.
Cam, thank you. We've got these question marks about the size of the lead, don't we, in regards to the Mustang. Now, the team there with the Medicis, their question mark is they've done their success penalty, but have the opposition. So they're questioning the time in the stop for McLaren. So that's that could explain why the gap is a bit larger than what we thought.
Thank you, Stubbsy. They're thinking what we've been thinking throughout the race, because by Will Brown's and my calculations, and both of us do use an abacus to count sometimes, as we watch Marcus Flack come in to serve his drive-through penalties. We're going to stay with this right now because the battle we watched before in pit lane between the McLaren and the Ford Mustangs about to happen again. So he enters pit lane, has to sit on the speed limit, and this is one of the longest times you will spend on a racetrack, isn't it? This will feel like an eternity.
That's right, and unfortunately here he's going to see George Medicki fly past on his right, and yeah, it's a long pit lane here and he's really going to suffer there. But also entering pit lane again, then you're thinking don't speed again, don't get another penalty. So I'm sure he slowed it up nice and early coming into pits there, hit the 40 kilometres an hour before the sign, and yeah, it's obviously a long pit lane. Unfortunately he's going to drop back a long way behind George Medicki here.
It's almost the exact same gap that we saw the other way. So massive penalty for your race leader Marcus Flack in the Method Motorsport McLaren. He drops back down to second now, and Nathan Morecambe enters pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty. For those of you just tuning in on 7 Sport, both of the penalties for the race leader and who was effectively third in Nathan Morecambe came about because of a pit lane speeding infringement. We believe there's also a question mark over the Method Motorsport McLaren and whether or not they serve the additional 10-second performance penalty in their pit stop. They should have stopped for 130 seconds, so there might be still a review happening for them. It'll be a big weekend for the Blue Oval. So many cars here as Ford Mustang celebrates 60 years as part of race Phillip Island. They won race 1 and 17.5 minutes to go. They've got a good gap back to second. Marcus Flack still holds that down, but Marcus Flack does currently hold the race lap record for this category at Phillip Island with that 1:34.4 he set earlier on during the race.
It's interesting how quick races can change, isn't it? I really would have thought Marcus Flack has got it in the bag, and then a penalty. And it's interesting to see so many people get a penalty there if they're just getting suckered into braking too deep into pit lane, and just, you know, you only have to go a couple of kilometres an hour over and you've got the fine. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing. I think it would have been a good race otherwise, especially between Nathan Morecambe. If Nathan Morecambe didn't get that penalty, I think he could have put a bit of pressure on George Medicki, and maybe yeah, we could have seen the Method McLaren up there as well.
It'll be good to hear from Method very shortly to see their thoughts on what's transpired with both the penalty and potentially the pit stop as well. As we watch George Medicki down into turn 4. There's Marcus Flack. He had the race lead, and it looked like they were going to have it regardless. Now he's got his work cut out for him. The gap, 21 seconds. Drive-through penalty, car 23 now. So that's Ed Maguire. And that's due to his pit stop time. So he didn't serve his proper time. Drive-through penalty for car 23 as we continue to watch George Medicki.
It's funny being a driver. I just want to see him throw a safety car. Just throw something on the track, throw a safety car. Let's watch them race till the end. So it'd be pretty cool. I think they're all pretty tight. George Medicki, Marcus Flack, they're all pretty tight in time. So I think it'd be an awesome race to the end if they were line astern. But that's how motorsport goes, unfortunately.
That's written, spoken, authorised by Will Brown, not by anyone as part of our broadcast team.
Thank you, Will. Go do a nudie run out there or do something to...
no, please. Spare us all, Will. George Medicki now out to 22-second lead from Marcus Flack. Jake Camilleri, he's served his stop. He's a solo driver, a full hour at the wheel. He'll be feeling it in these GT cars. GT4, we mentioned before, they're not as quick as their GT3 fellow category, but they'll certainly be giving the neck a workout, the body a workout, and an hour around this circuit, well, you'll know about it at the end of that day.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, even yesterday, it's not that hot down here, but inside the car, it does get hot. I was only in the GT car for half an hour, and by the end, I actually could feel the heat a fair bit, and I'm not sure what these are like inside, but I'm sure they're very similar. So, yeah, definitely warms up in there for the drivers, and yeah, doing an hour around here, you're definitely going to feel it. The G-force is coming onto the front straight there, flat out, and also turn 1. It definitely gives you a workout, that's for sure.
Ed Maguire has served his drive-through penalty as part of the Buckby Motorsport team in the Mercedes AMG GT4. Big shout out to the team at Buckby Motors. They're sponsoring the Buckby Motors wall cam we've been enjoying all the pictures from. And Ben Newman actually drove that car down at Race Tasmania as well as preparation for this weekend. Good to see he and Ed Maguire. I tell you what, every time they say it's Eddie Maguire, I always turn around to see who's driving that car. As we look back to George Medicki making his way through turn 11. It's hard to rotate those bigger cars through that turn 10, 11 complex, isn't it? You really need to open it up, but you don't want to compromise your run through 10.
Yeah, I think, as I was saying earlier, it's just what this category is all about. Each car produces different lap times in different areas, you know. It's interesting watching where the McLaren can turn underneath and hold it tighter through that turn 11, 12 complex, and the Mustang has to flow it a bit more. It can't get stopped as easy, can't get it turned as easy, but then in the high speed, it's probably quite good, and also down the straight. So, yeah, it's one of those categories that you can be faster on one part of the track and slower on the other, so you really need to, you know, optimise those areas.
Look at the different marks of car. Ginetta v Porsche v Mercedes on their way through the hay shed. It's getting willing now. That's the 19 of Mark Griffith. You mentioned him a couple of times earlier.
Yep, Griffo's been a great supporter of mine. I've actually done heaps of racing with Mark Griffith. I've raced everything from a GT3 car with him to a Toyota Echo. So it just proves that I'll say yes to racing everything, racing a Toyota Echo with him. But Griffo is great in our sport, loves to go racing and really enjoys it, and always got a smile on his face. So I've always enjoyed jumping in a car with him and going for a few laps.
Pit lane windows closed now as well, so there'll be no additional cars able to stop at this point in time, and everyone did serve their compulsory pit stop. So that's done. As we see Ben Grice start to get ready for a Trans Am race, and that'll be one to watch. Let's check in quickly, though, with Bernie Beetle. Sarah Burt.
Guys, Ryder Quinn has come through and served his penalty for a collision with car 101 earlier on. He went around again, but they have retired the car, and car 101 has also retired due to that collision earlier on.
Thank you very much, Sarah Burt. Great to have you working hard down in pit lane, bringing us all the news. 12 minutes and 1 lap remaining. George Miedeke leads from Marcus Flack. And Jake Camilleri sits there in third. Tim Leahy was on the podium yesterday. He's the first of our AM-class drivers from John Bow, who's forward back and sitting inside the top 5 outright at the moment. If we look further down, the Pro-Am, Josh Buchan, he leads that category, currently in P11. And Lockie Manif chasing him down as well. So those two a lot further down the order, and on the podium there is Hughes, back in 15th after that pit lane infringement, speeding infringement, and then led to a drive-through penalty. But 4 of the Pro-Am cars out on track, and he's the second last of them, so he'll get a podium as a result of that.
It was interesting watching the Mercedes there and the BMW go over Lukey Heights, and how much the Mercedes was getting that front wheel hop and looking like it was gripping up, and the BMW didn't look as much affected. So it'd be interesting if the Mercedes is softer or what's causing that, but it definitely was getting quite an aggressive hop up over there.
So we continue to watch the battles for position. The 23 and the 24 duking it out at the moment. That's actually for a lap traffic, I should say. The 24 of Nathan Morecambe lapping Ed Maguire.
Looking from the outside as well, it looks like George Miedeke is just, sort of bringing this car home, I'd say. He was doing a fair bit faster lap times before Marcus Flack had that pit lane infringement and had to serve his pit lane penalty. But George Miedeke's probably lapping about, 8/10 a lap slower than Marcus Flack, which isn't going to allow him to catch up with the time left. But it's going to mean that, you're not risking a tyre blowout, not risking overexerting the tyres or anything like that. So I'd say George is just bringing home, but
it's a good opportunity for us to have a chat about tyres. I will come back to you shortly, because the team down in pit lane with 10 minutes remaining are working hard. Chris Stubbs, what do you got for us?
Cam, you mentioned before about the cool cars that we have on show in Monochrome GT4. The Ginetta is one of those. It's a special car. Mark Cotterell is in it with Jared Hughes. Talk to us about the weekend and how it's coming together for you.
The weekend's been quite interesting. I've never driven here, so Friday afternoon in practice in the rain on slicks was my first drive here. Qualifying, we're just building up for me. I'm a bit old, so Jared's the hare and I'm the tortoise. But the car's beautiful, and we're just getting everything out of it we can, and we're just getting hosed a bit on the straight. So, but no, I love the car. Yorkshire built, beautiful, pure race car.
Mark, you are loving your time in the category, and we're loving having you as part of it. So much so that you've decided to back the category with your own hard-earned cash and your own craft. So Mark is a master jeweller based up in Brisbane. We talk about championship rings, think NBA. We're going to have a championship ring in Monochrome GT4. You're going to actually design it and build it yourself, craft it yourself. Tell us what else you're doing for this series, because that's not all you're doing.
No, we're essentially a bespoke jeweller. We're very personal, small, but we care about what people really want, and we make it. And as long as you know what you want, as long as you hang on to your pocket a little bit, and that's where it's a bit similar to racing. People say about cars and jewellery, it's got to, how fast do you want to spend? But it's I'm a jeweller personally, so I can design it and sit on the bench, but I've got other people as well that do it. Good little business, probably sometimes not as much fun as this, although that's debatable. But yeah, we're gonna do a full designer ring for the champion for the end of the year. And we've got 2 BRM chronographs that we're going to give away, one in Queensland and one for Bathurst. And we've spread a bit of the love around through the AMs, the silver drivers, and the Pro-Ams as well. So,
Mark, that is an awesome contribution. I think right now I hear Will Brown making some phone calls. He's up in commentary to make sure he can get a ride in a GT4 and get hold of that ring at the end of the year.
Oh, Stubbsy, you beat me to it. He's had his phone out. He's already been on the phone to Mark Griffith. He's like, I'm driving next week. I want one of those championship rings.
I need a faster driver than Mark Griffith to win, I think. But luckily I'm good mates with him and I can say that. But yeah, that's pretty cool to be interesting. You know, overseas you see that a lot in the US, don't you? They do the rings. I think it's awesome, and it's a cool thing that they're introducing here. So yeah, that's great to hear.
And they're still on the podium at the moment. Jared Hughes at the wheel of the 750. We saw Mark Cotterell, even though it says up on your timing monitors Cotterell, he's not out on track, but we're just chatting to him with Chris Stubbs. Love to see it. Great to see the Ginetta as well. There'll be other tracks where the Ginetta finds its form as well. Phillip Island, you do need a little bit of horsepower. I know there's only one main straight, as we see Marcus Flack, who is now bringing the time down. With 7 minutes remaining, though, it probably won't be enough, and that's probably more to the fact that George Miedeke is just nursing the car home. Not that it needs the nursing, but you really want to take no chances. He's on for a clean sweep here. As we start to wind down the clock, let's check in with Sarah Burt.
Jacob Lawrence, things are getting pretty exciting out there. How's it looking for you?
Yeah, it's been great. I had a good first stint. JB's doing well out there now. A little bit of traction loss there for mine, but it looks like he's picking up the pace and holding us where we want to be, so hope, fingers crossed, he can hold it.
A family affair here for you guys, as always. Your dad's here. How's he going?
Yeah, with the old boy here, he's having a bit of fun with us. Last year he got sick of me having all the fun, so he thought he'd come and join us, so it's been great. I'm sure we'll have a lot of good memories together.
Thanks very much, Jacob.
Great job, Sarah Burt. That's the team over at Randall Racing. Peter Lawrence driving with Jamie Augustine, and Jacob Lawrence driving with John Bowe. John Bowe sitting up in 6th at the moment outright and 2nd in the AM class. They were on the podium yesterday. JB said it's a very strict no spray policy, and he bolted off the side of the podium before they got their champagne out. 6 minutes, 1 lap remaining. George Miedeke leads this motor race from Marcus Flack by 18.5 seconds, and that's the Randall Racing entry.
It's interesting to watch here as well. I'm guessing it's Josh Bushen, who's 1 lap down, that's putting pressure on George Miedeke to unlap himself. You know, you can see him right behind there. He's been sitting there for about 5 laps and putting a bit of pressure on him. So I'd love to see him make a move.
I think he might.
Yeah.
He's got to be careful, though, because if he does anything to unsettle George Miedeke, not only will he have the officials to contend with, but I think Andy Miedeke might be straight down to the garage as well. They'll be watching on at the moment. And with the Ford Australia CEO watching on as well. The Ford Global CEO making phone calls to them. Oh, geez, we've got to put Will Brown into race control at some stage just to get him to make the calls for it.
Yeah, to make it a bit of fun.
It'd be certainly very entertaining. As you said, yeah, Josh Buchan trying to unlap himself as they make their way through Hayshed with 5 minutes and 1 lap remaining. But it's been a big weekend for Ford. Great to see them supporting race Phillip Island and GT4 in particular, and that's the battle between the race leader and 2nd place in Marcus Flack. We still have that question mark, though, whether there's an additional penalty potentially waiting for the McLaren, because the pit stop we saw, for those of you just joining us on 7+, it was first advantage to the Mustang with Ryland Gray at the wheel. Then with the changeover in the pit stop, it should have only been a 4-second gap, and it was out to over 18 seconds at one point. And then a pit lane speeding infringement for Marcus Flack in his McLaren. Meant that they had to serve a drive-through penalty, and then the advantage went back the way of the Ford Mustang GT4. 17 seconds the gap between 1st and 2nd. 4 minutes and 1 lap remaining, and we're going to check in again with Chris Stubbs.
Cam, thank you. We are getting close to crunch time here in Monochrome at GT4. The CEO of Monochrome is Jason New. He joins me. Jason, this is so cool to finally have this series as a standalone event. You must be loving every moment of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, the series is growing. Definitely, we've seen a big jump from last year to this year. We've been with them beginning from the start, and just happy to see the smile on the drivers and the team's face after when the adrenaline's worn off. Great job to George and Ryland yesterday, and Medicki Motorsport team, and also kudos to Chaz and guys at the Motorsport team and the drivers. Good job. I can't wait to see what happens today.
Jason, what's the attraction for Monochrome for GT4? We think we know why it shines and what's so cool about it, but for you, what's the involvement?
So I think it's about, bringing the drivers together in an environment where they can race in their own accord. You don't have to worry about being pressured by another category on next to them and stuff like that. And we really like to see, having that ability to support an environment where drivers can pursue their dreams here. So that's what we do at Monochrome.
We couldn't do it without you, Jason. Thanks for your time and enjoy the closing stages of this race.
Thank you.
It was good to have Jason up on the podium yesterday as well, and I'm sure he'll be there later today.
It's interesting while they were talking to him, we just saw Josh Buchan unlap himself, and I think that's George Medicki thinking, he's putting pressure on me here. He's not in the race. I'm going to let him go and make sure nothing silly happens here. But you know what? As a race car driver, when you're leading the race and someone passes you, it never feels great, though. I can tell you that much. So I can see why George was holding him out for a fair while. But Josh is quick in that little McLaren. He's got nothing to lose out there. He's going as fast as he can. So I think George will just sit in behind him now and bring it home.
Well, 2 minutes remaining in one lap, and the gap is now down to 15 seconds. It's not enough, but George Medicki doesn't need to give up any more time here. And with a bit of lap traffic up in front of him, and that was the Smollen car with Lockie Manif at the wheel, starting to chase him down as well. You don't want to get too conservative. So is that a bit of decal starting to flap on the side of the Mustang? So that's only sticker, so I don't think that will trouble race control. But if Andy Medicki's watching on right now, he'll be saying, no, stop, take the cameras off him.
Yeah, that's right. I've had that happen before at Bathurst. Your doors popping open and you hope nobody can see it. But yeah, it looks like it's nothing sinister. It's very small.
Andrew in the background, you can see him just turning around there. Andrew is the father of George Medicki, a famous racer in his own right as well. He'll be watching on. 14.2 seconds now. Just over a minute and one lap remaining, so we'll have 2 more laps in this race. And he's still got to deal with traffic. Got a hard-charging Marcus Flack coming. Jake Camilleri holding down the final spot on the outright podium. The silver driver, or the silver cup, in the top 3 spots. Tim Leahy leads for the AMS. John Bow, he's in 6th outright, but 2nd in the AMS. And Mark Griffith on the podium for the amateurs as well. As we count down, and the gap now 13.5 seconds.
Marcus Flack has done a great job to go from 22 seconds, I think it was, after that pit lane penalty to now 13 seconds. To pull back nearly 10 seconds in that time is a great drive. So it's disappointing he got that penalty, but he's going to work his way back up there, but just not enough time left on the board.
Should give credit to Josh Buchan and Jason Yu as well. Those 2 drivers started off rear of grid. They're up 7 spots into the top 10 at the moment. And Josh Buchan is your leading Pro-Am driver out on track at the moment. He's just up in front of this driver here, George Medicki. We're about to time out, and there'll be 1 lap remaining at the end of this.
And it's actually interesting, on this lap, Marcus Flack has gone fastest in the first sector out of anyone for this race. So to do that, this late in the race is an awesome job. So you can see how hard he's working to get up there and try and catch George. But we know there's not enough time left, but he's setting some great sectors.
I know there's 1 lap remaining, but look at the traffic. He's parked at the moment. So Marcus Flack on a charge. There'll be 1 lap remaining. 12 seconds now, the gap. Lots of traffic.
Unfortunately here for George Medicki, you just want to stay out of it. You just don't want to get caught up in any damage here. Limit your risk and just bring it home. It's only 1 lap to go.
He's still stuck. He can't get through. Josh Buchan holding him back at the moment as McLaren almost running tail gunner for the other McLaren out there. Josh Buchan, the gap is 11 seconds. 1 lap remaining. George Medicki, your race leader, just cannot get through. And he continues through turn 2 for the last time as part of the Monochrome GT4 Australia Series. Ryland Gray watching on. He's done such a great job this weekend. Incredibly quick young driver starting his career. Almost semi-reminiscent of a young Will Brown who was racing everything. Any car they'd put him in. And he's looking slightly nervous at the moment because the gap's 10 seconds. Half a lap to go. A very good lap last time around from Marcus Flack. And Josh Buchan is holding George Medicki up as they make their way through Hayshed. There's not going to be enough time yet. It's been a good race. I'm really enjoying GT4. Glad to have it as part of the Australian motorsports scene. They make their way up over Lukey Heights from the last time. And if you're tuned in to 7+ and you've been following the journey, George Miedeke, Andrew Miedeke, the Miedeke Motor Group got this car on Tuesday. They had to rewire parts of it. They had to make sure the loggers were working. The Shannon Speed Series Ford Mustang 60 years race, Phillip Island, race 1, went to the Ford Mustang, and now they clean sweep for the Blue Oval. Ryland Gray with a big smile and a number 1 there. George Miedeke, he'll be very happy at the wheel. The gap ended up at 9 seconds as we see Marcus Flack cross the finish line as well here at Phillip Island. What a great race for the Monochrome GT4 Australia Series race number 2.
That was one of those races that just had a bit of everything, didn't it? Some great racing, a fair few penalties out there, and in the end, George Miedeke getting it. But Marcus Flack, God, he did a good job to catch that much time.
Very happy. The CEO of Ford Australia here watching on. And right across from them on the other side of the track is the lineup of all the Ford Mustangs. And they lit up, didn't they? And around this circuit. They had a drive around the track this morning, all of those beautiful Mustangs. And I think there's been a few more orders put in for some Ford Mustangs as we look at the official results from race 2 for the Monochrome GT4 Australia Series. George Miedeke and Ryland Gray for the Miedeke Motor Group take that one out. Marcus Flack and Tom Heyman for Method Motorsport in their McLaren finished 2nd. Jake Camilleri, a solo driver for Gomersall Motorsport in his Mercedes, finished 3rd. Tim Leahy won for the AMS. He finished 4th outright. Then Nathan Morecambe did a great job getting himself up inside the top 5 as well. Sam Brabham, he finished in 6th outright. John Bow, he was 2nd for the AMS. First for the Pro-Ams was Josh Buck, and Lockie Manif was also in the mix throughout. Had to work quite hard to get that car back into contention. Let's check out the highlights for race 2 of the Monochrome GT4 Australia Series, and George Miedeke used the horsepower advantage straight away off the start. It was Ryland Gray, I should say, that got out into the lead and headed off as Shane Smollen had bodywork rip off the rear of his Porsche. Ryland Gray worked hard to keep the advantage there. A mechanical black flag for Shane Smollen came at an inopportune time, and this contact down at 4 put Tony Quinn out of the race as well as Steve Jakic, and they both DNF'd as a result of that. Then we saw the pit lane speeding infringement that occurred that put the Marcus Flack car that was leading that race back into 2nd place, and George Miedeke took to the wheel of his entry and got caught up in a fair bit of traffic. That was Josh Buchan that managed to unlap himself, but hold up slightly George Miedeke in his run to the flag. But even a bit of bodywork that was starting to rub off on the Ford Mustang couldn't dampen their day, and they made it a clean sweep weekend for the Ford Mustang. And there's George Miedeke making his way back into the stop area. Great to see. He'll be a very happy, very tall driver. He told me yesterday that they thought they had a car good enough to win. And not only did they win, they won both races, race 1 and race 2. So we'll see him get out of the car very shortly. Will Brown, thank you for joining me in commentary for that. It was an entertaining race.
Yeah, not a drama. Thanks for having me. It was a bit of fun to watch, that's for sure.
So there's George Miedeke. He's won both race 1 and 2 with Ryland Gray as part of Miedeke Motor Group. And let's go now to a ad break.